What's good, gamers? Akalon here, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you. Today, we're finally getting to some of the interviews, and we're going to be covering a lot of the interviews sort of smooshed together, because there have been a ton of interviews, but in a lot of those interviews, as usually is the case, a lot of the same questions pop up, because every creator and every outlet is trying to get those answers for their community. So I'm going to be smushing a lot of interviews together in this one, but two of the big interviews that will really shine in this is one that was done by IGN, and then another that was done with Bloomberg. So, some incredibly good news. We're going to start off with the Bloomberg interview. It was with Mike Ybarra, and it very specifically focused on the relationship between Blizzard and Microsoft. First things first, what we speculated on sort of months ago at this point, yes, Blizzard is no longer part of Activision. It's no longer Activision Blizzard. It is now Blizzard. Activision is its own company, wholly independent from Blizzard. In fact, I use that word advisedly because Mike Ybarra himself said that Microsoft views Blizzard as an independent studio. Yes, ultimately, everything Blizzard does will make Microsoft money, but from Microsoft's point of view, from Phil Spencer's point of view, they're not involved in the day-to-day. And this actually became very, very clear in the meet and greet that happened about a week ago, I believe, where Phil Spencer and the entire executive team of Microsoft was poised to go to the Blizzard campus. And what Blizzard did, according to sources inside the company, they were getting all of their spreadsheets ready. So they were lining up all of their player numbers, all of their, monetary numbers, everything, because that's usually what they would do for Activision visits when the suits arrived. When they arrived, Phil Spencer didn't want to see any of that. He was like, boys, I don't care about this. I want to meet the people. I want to see what you guys are working on. I want to go around. So they literally just walked throughout the campus and he met with the different teams. He played some of their prototypes, some of their games, some of the things that's about to come out. And he was like, oh, this is really cool. And then they had a barbecue and they were all chatting about, and that was the end of it. And Mike Ybarra, who worked at Microsoft earlier, previously, basically said if he were to walk into Phil Spencer's office and say, hey, so we want to do this, this, and this, Phil Spencer would tell him, run your studio. It's not my job. Now, the reason I'm saying this and the reason I'm pretty confident that that is actually the truth is it lines up with things that I've heard from people who work for studios that's been acquired by Microsoft. I'm thinking specifically of Obsidian as well as in Exile. I have people that work there that I've spoken to. In both of these instances, I was told Microsoft is completely hands-off. They don't care. They don't care what you're working on. They don't care what you're making. They don't care how far along you are in the process. All they care about is what is the budget that you require in order to make this work. And that's it. That's it. They don't ask for a launch date. They don't ask for a possible shipping date. They don't care. As far as they're concerned, as long as everyone is working and making the games that they love, they're happy with it. Also, in the Bloomberg IP, or in the Bloomberg interview, there were discussions about RTS returning. Things like StarCraft, things like Warcraft, and this is where we get a little bit of bad news. Sadly, yes, I know. According to Mike Ybarra, they would love to dive back into that, mainly because of what I said months ago. Microsoft's focus isn't on big million-dollar IPs. Microsoft's focus is far more on games. They just need games and niches to provide to the Xbox Game Pass community so that they can get more people signed up to the Xbox Game Pass. That's pretty much all Microsoft cares about. The problem that Blizzard have is that all of the people that used to make RTS games have left Blizzard Entertainment. They left and started their own studios. They left to go work for other studios. So they're most likely not going to be able to bring back things like StarCraft RTS or Warcraft RTS. But they are willing to dive into other genres and taste the waters in those IPs with other games from other genres. So, take that good or bad. It depends how you want to view it. Maybe some single-player StarCraft games could be coming our way. Maybe even a God of War, World of Warcraft edition kind of thing. Maybe coming our way. We don't know. But with that said, that's sort of all that was very interesting with the Bloomberg article specifically. I want to focus on the IGN article next, or the interview next, because it was actually really, really good. So they were asked about the 3 expansion cadence, announcing 3 expansions all at the same time. And they made it very clear this was Chris Metzen's doing. This was his drive. The idea for him was to plan ahead further than ever before. And he had this insane plan for what does 20 years of World of Warcraft actually mean? How many stories have we told in the last 20 years that have not finished, that have not come to fruition, that have not received its penultimate end? And then how many stories have we ended that, you know, now leave a giant gaping hole in the sort of, let's say, available story room of World of Warcraft? And he came up with this giant plan. Now, for those of you that didn't know, there's another interview out there where they speak a little bit about what Xal'atath's role here is. And it turns out Xal'atath is basically setting up what seems to be the future threat of the Void. Since the Black Empire has come to an end, the old gods have all died, the Harbinger of the Void is now working tirelessly to set up a brand new Void threat on Azeroth. Will we defeat it in Midnight, or will this actually become sort of like a slumbering threat that we will deal with for the next 20 years? We will have to wait and see. But really, it started off, and this is actually very good news, it started off being just 1 expansion. And as they talked to Chris Metzen and they sort of brainstormed, they were like, it's not going to work in 1 expansion. There's just too much story that we need to tell in this. So what if we did it 2? And then they kept workshopping it, and they're like, okay, 2's not going to work. It's not enough. We have to do 3. There's just too much story. It's not going to fit into a single expansion. So, another thing that came out in the interview is big bets, and they're taking risks. They basically sort of preemptively tried to tell the players, look, there's a chance that we're going to make giant mistakes with some of the things that we're doing, but we're going to do it anyway, because it feels like Blizzard have reached the end of their play it safe, don't try to upset anyone, just try to do the best that you can so that no one is absolutely angry with you. And instead they're going, look, just throw everything out there. Like, let's go big, let's go bold. If we fail big. If we win big. So it's basically placing all of their bets on red. That's what they're doing here. Dragonflight, also Zaralak Cavern, was really the beta test for the next expansion. The underground zones will borrow very heavily from Zaralak Cavern and the technology that went into Zaralak Cavern. We're not just talking about the technology, you know, that seamlessly transitions you from one part of the world to the other, but also just how they build underground zones. They believe they can do it even better than what they did in Zaralak Cavern. So we'll see how that works. A big thing that came out in this interview is that this expansion will explain the last 20 years of World of Warcraft. So it is going to touch on basically all of the open stories for the last 20 years, of course, ignoring Nipple Guy, because no one cares about that story. Something bad that was announced, at least I think it's a little bit bad, is that you can start at any time. If you don't start in the War Within, you can jump in Midnight and you'll be fine. Now, the reason I say this is kind of bad is it depends on what they mean. If they mean, once again, that the War Within, the story isn't going to be respected, if you miss that, you can literally skip it and just go straight into Midnight. That is bad, right? Something that me as a lore nerd, and I'm assuming all of you that's watching, what we want is the lore to be treated as sacred within World of Warcraft, because it is sacred. Lore is what keeps the world together. It's what builds the world. And the lore needs to be respected in that way. And if we just get more of these expansions where, yes, it's a great story, but no new player is ever going to know it because they're just going to skip over it, that's not good. So I'm hoping what they mean with you can start at any time is that they are developing tech that will allow for a new player to seamlessly play through all of the War Within, getting the full story before going into Midnight without bogging the player down in like useless quests and side quests and stuff, just to get through the expansion. So hopefully they're building these expansions with the future in mind. this is also very, very important and a nice segue to the next point. The team has never planned this far in advance, ever. They are doing 2 expansions at the same time, and I sort of need to explain how that works, because there's 3 interviews that touch and explain different variants of this. They have 3 teams currently in World of Warcraft, which is the most teams they've ever had. They have the live team, who make all of the patch content. Then they have Team 1 that works on the War Within, Team 2 that works on Midnight, and they're doing it at the same time. So Midnight is already well into production, and the War Within is well into production. So as soon as the War Within launches, the team that made the War Within immediately starts with the Last Titan. The team that works on Midnight will finish Midnight, say, halfway through the War Within, and they will then start with the next saga, so to speak. So they're now sort of 3 teams are all working in unison to push out content as fast and as freely as humanly possible. Now, they did ask about the faster content, that comment, whether or not that means that expansions will come out quicker. And Holly here sort of explained that that is part of it, but she kind of made it sound like it's not exactly that. So we shouldn't expect to get yearly expansions, because technically speaking, all expansions will still have the exact same amount of content. So there's still going to be, at the very least, a 0.1 patch, a 0.1.5, 0.1.7, 0.2, 0.2.5, 0.2.7. So those patches are still going to exist. Where they are now able to save a lot of time is in the in-between bits of an expansion. And you all know exactly what I'm talking about. The patch, the season where the Fated stuff comes out in Shadowlands, but then there's like a few months actually of just no new real content because they're finishing up the expansion. Those are the times that will now be shaved off. So they're not trying to shift this to a yearly expansion cadence. They're most likely looking at 18 months, which we speculated on before. That is where they think they can save a lot of time. But they already told us, or in the interview, they said they're going to be very creative with even patch 2.5 and 2.7 in this expansion, in Dragonflight. There's going to be some creative stuff that they're already trying out, but then they're going to get even more creative in the future. So I'm really looking forward to it, because every time they were asked about something, they kept saying there's going to be a lot more risks and a lot more experimentation. And they're open to making bigger mistakes and, you know, fixing it, because they have the time and the teams now to fix it. Also, in terms of transparency, they were asked about that. And it turns out that this is the new Blizzard, ladies and gentlemen. The Blizzard that speaks to their players, the Blizzard that tells their players exactly what is going on. Yeah, that's how it works now. They decided in Shadowlands they can't continue the way that they used to be. And they sort of explained it in a way of, their focus used to be product first. They were the developers of World of Warcraft, and everything they did was for World of Warcraft. So they wouldn't do something if it didn't make sense for World of Warcraft. And they realized that this mentality is completely wrong. The mentality should be, we are developing World of Warcraft for our players. So whatever the players want, whether it fits into the universe or not, we have to make it fit into the universe. So yeah, maybe we don't want all alts to share their renown, because in our world, a character is sacred and the character is building relationships with different factions, but our players don't want to play that way, so we're removing it. And we're making renown game-wide, because their focus has shifted to player first. And they want to make sure that the players are always part of the development cycle. Then we have Warcraft movie series confirmed, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Holly is now the president or the team lead for the Warcraft universe, meaning the IP will go on sale soon. I'm really hopeful that even though there are no developers in Blizzard left to make RTS, in the Microsoft ecosystem, there are a lot of developers that make very good RTS games. And now that World of Warcraft has a universe team, so a team that owns the IP, they can start selling this IP to some of the people that do make good RTS and say, yeah, make the Warcraft game, you know, go for it, run with it. One good thing, Mason has the final say on everything, creatively speaking. So if a company wants to go, yeah, we're making Warcraft 3 or 4, Mason is the one that says, no, 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 that lore isn't going to work for us because our game is like this and you have to have the lore match up with how our game is running. So Chris Mason is a very, very big part of that. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of other bits and pieces of information in these interviews, and I will have them linked in the description down below if you want to go watch them for yourself. I wanted to cover sort of the most important bits of the interview, the things that I'm excited about and things that I think you're excited about. But now I've wasted enough of your time, so hit the like button if you liked it. Subscribe over on Patreon for $1 a month, which keeps the channel free from sponsorships forever. So your $1 really goes a very long way. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. Peace out.